This is More Than Work, the podcast reminding you that your self-worth is made up of more than your job title. Each week, I'll talk to a guest about how they discovered that for themselves. You'll hear about what they did, what they're doing, and who they are. I'm your host, Rabia. I work in IT, perform stand-up comedy, write, volunteer, and, of course, podcast. Thank you for listening. Here we go. All right, everyone. So welcome back to More Than Work. And this week I'm talking to Tamara Doerksen. She's a multipreneur. So that means she's founded quite a few businesses, but also she's a published author, yoga and meditation and mindfulness teacher, and a career transition and entrepreneur coach. So we're going to have a lot to dig into. Plus, she has a nonprofit that she founded. So thanks for being a guest on More Than Work.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Robbie. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. So first of all, can you just tell people where I'm talking to you from?
I'm talking to you today from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and it's super sunny today and unseasonably warm, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, it's like that in London. I'm in London, England, and it is warm today. I can say I did not have to put on a jacket in the middle of November. So though it's nice out, I'm kind of like, this is not going great in a way. But yeah, it's funny. It's really nice everywhere, which is good, but it's almost like spring now.
That's awesome. If we could skip the winter part, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Well, especially there. Oh my gosh. Like you guys get a lot colder there than we do here. So in introducing you, I mean, it's quite a list of things you do and you've done. And I think on More Than Work, I mean, one thing that's really important is just kind of talking to people about how they got to the places they did and if they're pursuing their passion or their values and things like that. And so when you think about just the first part, the multipreneur, so can you talk a little bit about the businesses you've had and kind of your path that led you then to the other things you've been doing?
Sure. It's a windy, bendy road, and I think often that's the case. And when I think of, kids who are graduating high school, how can they possibly know what they want to do for the rest of their life? So I did as many people do. I fell into a career fairly early on, and I was with a global consulting company for around 25 years. And I thought that was sort of going to be where I hung my hat. A lot of people will retire from an organization like that. Around 2010, everyone in the organization needed to and had a responsibility to contribute to the community by doing some sort of volunteer work. At the same time, there were some personal circumstances that were going on in my life and in the life of my family, my parents specifically. My mom's health was failing, and so my mom and dad made a decision to move from their small community, Eyebrow, Saskatchewan, 120 people. I think that's a gross exaggeration, to be honest. I think that includes the cattle as well. And so they needed to downsize and my mom was moving into long-term care in the city nearby, and my dad was going to move into an apartment. So they were, downsizing, and my dad had a basement full of collectibles. And it included my brother's things. So my brother passed away after surgery to correct a congenital heart defect in 1971. And they had kept his things. And one of those things was a tricycle. And so they decided to do an auction. The tricycle was on that auction. I went and attended it. And it just didn't feel right. All day it didn't feel right to see that tricycle there, and it eventually sold. I came back to Toronto, and I met with my director at that point, and we talked about the tricycle, and he said, never should have let that go. And it just magically wove itself into this community leader strategy. A lot of people were struggling on how they were going to contribute to the community. And long story, maybe even longer, is that we decided to launch a charity in my brother's memory called Lonny Small Foundation, and that is all to help kids with congenital heart defects just be kids, by providing them the opportunity to have the same fun and sense of adventure and play that other kids have. So we send kids with congenital heart defects to summer camp. So that's really where my journey began. And that's where the first business was founded. Up until that point, and I know, Robbie, in your introductory video, you talk about how if you have one thing that you are just focused on, that your identity can be very tied to that. And when things don't go well, then it seems like everything's not going well. And so with Lonny Smile, it helped me to start to realize that I could have these things outside of work that could give me fulfillment. Lonny Smile led to a executive producer role in the movie industry because we, as part of Lonny Smile, we had hosted these large rock concerts to raise funds, and I asked a Canadian musician, Murray Foster from the band Great Big Sea, to host one of our events. He hosted multiple of them, and after one of those events, he reached out to me and he just said, I love what I see. You can raise money. You present yourself well. You're very professional. I need that on this film that I'm looking to produce. It was his first feature film. And so that started the journey of raising the funds for that film. We did that over a year. What that really taught me was you never know who's sort of watching you and observing what you're able to bring to the table. So that started my film career. That introduced me to Darren Portelli, who was also working on the film. We went into, at that point, after the film ended, we went into business together on Darren's film and television company, Spiral Entertainment, in producing films and TV shows. And at the time, Darren was also, as an innovator, he was inventing a prebiotic soda that would help with his mental health issues. And at one point, he finally said, hey, I got this thing. What about doing sodas instead of movies? And that launched Crazy D's sparkling prebiotic sodas. And since then, it's just been a journey from there in terms of looking to start my own businesses, pursue things on my own as well, all while doing a full-time role. So I know that's a long answer and it's a very bendy journey, but that's what brought me to here today.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I'm similar to you where I kind of know the key points and then you can delve in at any point, deeper. And so I guess one thing that I want to chat about first is just thinking about you being in the kind of job that is very demanding when you're a consultant, basically. And I think what I've noticed with friends and even with me is that you don't always realize your skills transfer. And so you'll build up this robust skill set that lets you do specific things with clients or internally or whatever. And same with me, like I was a project manager most recently, and now I'm the marketing manager for my company. And I would have never seen that I could do that. But then also I'm very capable because I've spent 20 years in IT building up these skills. And so similar to you. And so I guess, were you at all surprised, or did it take a moment for you to say, oh, I could be a producer on a film? Because the person who, Murray, asked you to do it and you were able to, but what was that like for you? Because I think it's really interesting maybe for people to hear, like, how do you believe that you can do it, or at what point do you do that?
It's a great question. And I was terrified. I'll be very honest and say that, you're with a large, global consulting firm for that long. And frankly, at some point, I kind of felt that, you kind of feel like you're part of the furniture. You've done it for so long. I had a great career, but sometimes you get to a point where you kind of don't feel that your skill sets are fresh or even recognized within the organization. So what the role in Murray's film did was it really made me feel appreciated all over again for the skill sets that I brought. So when Murray first asked me to be part of the film, I jumped in. He said, do you want to raise funds for the film? I'd always wanted to be in the film industry. So it was easy for me just to say yes. There was no question in my mind. This is my way into the film industry, something that I have wanted to do for a very long time. I went down at at that time to a store that's no longer in Toronto. It closed its doors, unfortunately. It was called the world's biggest bookstore. And I went down that afternoon and looked for books on raising funds for film, feeling that it was totally new to me, that this was a totally new thing for me, and that I had to learn from scratch. But then as I got into it, that's where, to your point about transferable skills, and especially when you talk about, IT and project management, which is my background too, you find out that really those skills are inherent to you. From Lonny Smile, I had raised funds to send kids to camp. From that consultancy opportunity, I had a lot of business skills and leadership skills, and being able to bring those together, it actually turned out to be, and relationship building skills, the ability to build strong, trusted relationships, which was so important as part of my career and as part of Lonny Smile too, because you have to build a lot of partnerships with folks and volunteers and everyone else. So for sure those skills came into play. And it wasn't immediately recognizable that I could bring those together, but once it started to roll, that's when I found out that it actually did.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a empowering thing to realize, right? And
it is.
Just to see, to recognize your value, and then to see that you can share it elsewhere, like in many, many ways. And I can definitely appreciate that. And so thinking about like wanting to be in film, did you envision that you would ever do something like a producer, or how did you like envision you wanted to be in film versus the reality of it?
I don't even know that I envisioned anything specifically. I just loved the film industry. Anytime I passed by a film set, I just felt like I was drawn to it. And I remember saying to Murray that when I started working on the film, it felt like it was something that I should have been doing all my life. It just felt like it was in my bones to do that. And another part about that whole journey too that I should mention is during the time that I was working on the film, I had talked to Murray at length a number of times about, looking to leave. I just sort of felt like it was time. It was time. I had come up to a senior leadership position in IT, and I just felt like it was time to leave. And during the time I was working on the film, I was actually on my way to meet Murray and others and the production company for a meeting. And before that, my director called me into his office and said that my leadership position was being eliminated. So I thought, do I go to this meeting? Don't I go to this meeting? And I ended up going, and I met Murray on the street corner just as we were going to the restaurant. I said, I've just lost my job. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, fantastic. He said, you've been wanting to leave. And he said, whether you jump or get pushed, you end up in the same place. And that's something that I'll always remember. So yeah, I didn't have any firm vision in terms of what the film industry would look like. I just felt like it was where I wanted to be.
Yeah, and then you had the ability to say yes, and then you kind of got kicked out anyway. But it's funny, that timing, and also the timing of running into him and having him be the person that you shared the news with, because I think it's a good example too of like kind of a more functional empathy as far as his response, because you could have run into someone who'd be like, oh, they're such jerks, and like, how dare they, and trigger kind of some other path of emotion, but he was just kind of like, yeah, well, this is what you wanted. This is good. Like, what's, and that's pretty cool. Like, that's a good person then to get perspective from at a very critical time, and lets you just kind of move forward instead of having like some kind of resentment about something. And because I know a lot of people will bring in to their next thing like the resentment of the past job and like, and then or whatever, and then they won't be able to like do as well in their new one, or even like have gratitude for their new one and the new pursuit, because they're still dealing with all the baggage. I mean, I went through that for sure a couple times, and once you get past that, you can do so much better, like just moving forward.
That's true. I've never thought about it in that terms, Robbie. Like, yeah, I felt like it was exactly what I needed to hear at the time, but meeting him on that day, on that corner, and even as I say it now, I can still imagine that. And it was just what I needed to hear to be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. That's awesome. You mentioned that you do these other pursuits, but you still have a full-time job. So what's your full-time job now? What's
So
that?
currently I'm with the Salvation Army in Canada. So the territory is Canada and Bermuda. And it's a great place to be. So after I, did other pursuits in the private sector, and then I decided that I felt a draw to be closer to the community, and a lot of that is around Lonny Smile. I just felt like I needed to contribute more to the community. And so I moved into the public sector, and I went to the City of Toronto. I love the City of Toronto. Love everything about this city in terms of film industry, great film industry, and Toronto International Film Festival, and so much more I could talk about. But I went to the City of Toronto because I knew that we were involved in shelters, long-term care, all of those community services that I felt very drawn to. But I was still in IT, had a great stint at the City of Toronto, still have many strong relationships there. Love the City of Toronto. But I didn't feel that I was in IT close enough to the community. There's a portion of, any city organization that is devoted to social services, but it's not all of it. So I had at that point an opportunity to join the Salvation Army, and that's all the Salvation Army does. Everything is around serving the community, the front line. So many services that I still don't even know of. The number of industries that sit under the Salvation Army is massive. And so it's a great place to be. And the way that I compare it to kind of the private industry, the private sector, which, I certainly, I owe a lot of my career to the private sector. But where I came from, we were lining pockets. Where I am now, we're making sure that people have pockets. And that, to me, makes all the difference. So I decided that I wanted to be much closer to the community and give back. And ultimately, I would love to be able to run a homeless shelter. That would be my ultimate goal. And let's see where the journey takes me.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I definitely went through, it's just very much a lot of what you're saying is resonating with me personally, just because I went through, and people who have listened for a while got tired of hearing me talk about it, I'm sure. But like this whole crisis of consciousness where I was kind of thinking, I need to leave private, go to nonprofit. But then I had to look at the reality of, being single and the age I am and trying to figure out retirement and stuff. So now I do a lot of volunteer work, and you were very understanding about even having to delay our chat a bit because I work at a charity shop in my neighborhood and Camden in London where I live, and it's for an organization called Crisis, and so they actually address the issue of homelessness. So I kind of like the synergy there of you having that as a passion, because that's an issue that's, it bothers me a lot, and I don't understand the ways to resolve it. I've never done the research to find out, but it's nice to at least work with an organization that's doing that. And so I really can appreciate where you're coming from on that, and really caring about your community too, versus, there's a lot of national charities or whatever, but which are good to help. And I definitely do work with different ones, but also just doing stuff locally. And I was talking at work the other day, gave a presentation about just how you can give back, and one thing I was saying there was local impact is so important, because I don't think people realize that, right?
That's right.
So has that changed your perspective, when you even walk around Toronto or look around, and kind of how you feel about it? You love it, now you're sharing that by working in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go back, Rabia, to that's very much what appealed to me when I was looking at your bio and hearing your intro, is that you have that heart for the community. We do share a lot of parallels, but I'm not funny like you are, so I wish I was. But anyway, but yeah, it absolutely changes your perspective when you start hearing the stories of people who need the services of the community, wherever that is, whether you're volunteering for a local thrift shop or where you are, you're driving downtown and you're passing people who are homeless on the street. You realize, and I've always felt, that we are all one step away from the street. All it takes is just one circumstance, one family tragedy, one loss of a income, or it could be anything. But I do believe an addiction, all it takes is one thing, and any of us could be on the street. So it certainly makes you think differently about the people that you're serving and the communities you're serving and how important it is. And I think that too, being part of any organization, whether you're working for an organization or volunteering for an organization that is helping the community, it grounds you. It grounds me. It puts a lot of things in perspective, and it's very humbling just to be able to help and support and help in the community.
Yeah, I agree. So first I want to talk about Lonny's Smile. So was that the first time that you had been really involved in the nonprofit space at all, or did you have kind of a history in your background of doing that work?
I had some experience. I wouldn't say that I had a lot of experience. So I would say participated in walks or helped support different galas in the community, but I didn't have a lot of experience prior to founding Lonny Smile. As I'd say with a lot of the pursuits that I've been in, I really didn't have a lot of background, yes, transferable skills, but a lot of background in the areas that I'd been in. So it was my first big foray for sure into the nonprofit space.
Yeah. And I think so with looking at the organization, I mean, and doing it for your brother who had passed quite a few years before, did that change your relationship with your grief about that? And I'll say I know that there's a persistent grief with losing a sibling or a loved one. I lost my brother 12 years ago, and
So sorry.
we were older. Thank you, and we were a lot older than you guys because Lonny was a child. But there's a persistent grief that I've found that can come and go and things like that. But I know for me, like doing certain things to honor his memory, whether they're volunteering or other rituals or something, helps. And did Lonny's Smile address some part of that for you if you were feeling it too?
It changed everything, and I'd say in a number of ways. And it's interesting because one of my friends has used the expression, living in a house of grief when you lose a sibling at any time. But I think when you're very small, it changes the household. Absolutely changes the household, and it affected, of course, our whole family, but it especially, I think, affected our dad in a big way. And for years, you really couldn't even say Lonny's name because it was just so tender. And all of those years later, when we launched Lonny Smile, it really changed so many things for our family. Suddenly, it brought and still brings so much light and life to his memory. Of course, I deal with grief. I'll deal with the grief of his loss as you will with your brother for the rest of our lives. But it gave his life more purpose, I'd say, in terms of suddenly we were able to speak his name. So many others were saying his name, and to hear that is just incredible. And now his memory was helping other kids like him. So we've sent 129 kids with congenital heart disease to summer camp, and I've gone to that camp and just seen the profound difference that it makes in their life. So yes, it absolutely pivoted the way that loss was felt in the lives of our family and me personally as well.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. And just knowing, I think when you can have some common experience around it at some point, because you're right, like the parents experience it in a completely different way than you as a sibling, and there's not much you can do, but then you create this common thing. So that's amazing. I saw David Sedaris, the writer.
Yes.
So his sister died, and I won't get into all that, but I saw him, he wrote one book that focused on that, and it was really interesting. And I talked to him at a book signing just for a moment. I mean, he was 1,000 people trying to see him. And he said one thing that really resonated, but he said, we always, we can recognize each other, those of us who lost a sibling, because it's a certain group. And I thought that was really interesting. And, he's this famous writer and everything, but it's the same for him, and he does it through writing, and you're doing it through the foundation. How did you get the idea to do that format of sending kids to a camp? And just because it really reminds me, I did a paper in college which didn't go that great because I was too admiring of my subject apparently, but on Paul Newman, right, and the Hole in the Wall Gang foundation
Yes.
that he has, and where they do that for kids with cancer, send them to camp. And I think it's great because it is helping them have a normal life, at least for a little while. And so how did you come up with the partnership you have with the camp and everything for Lonny's Smile?
Oh, that's an interesting story. So we decided that we were going to start this thing in memory of Lonny. And so a few of us started literally Googling organizations, like, because it's a foundation, we raise funds and then we direct those funds to like-minded causes. And so we started Googling organizations that help kids with congenital heart disease, and I came across Camp OKI, and at that, well, it still is the first, but not the only, fortunately, camp for kids with congenital heart disease in Canada. And so I reached out and heard back from Camp OKI, who said that one of the co-founders of Camp OKI, Dr. Joel Kirsch, would like to meet with me. So I went to meet with him. It's a camp that was founded by Dr. Joel Kirsch and Dr. Elizabeth Stevenson, who were both at the time cardiologists at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. I went to meet with Dr. Kirsch, and I took with me a little package of information to leave with him. And one was a photocopy of a letter that a nurse at Sick Kids Hospital, Anne-Marie Stain, had written to my parents at the time that my brother passed away, saying how sorry they were to lose him. And that's really something that would never happen now, but it did at the time.
No.
And so I left the package with him. We had a great conversation, and he got in touch with me the next day, and he said, I read the package, and that nurse, so this is 40 years after he passed away, and
Right.
he said, that nurse still works at Sick Kids Hospital. Would you like to meet her? And so it still gives me shivers thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I met her at Sick Kids Hospital. She remembered Lonny. Like, she remembered him. She remembered his platinum blonde hair. She remembered the room that he had been in, the bed that he had been in, because she said, some kids you never forget, and when you lose them, they take a piece of your heart. So that to me was it. Dr. Joel Kirsch was, we were meant to find each other. Camp OKI was meant to be the organization that we would support.
Yeah.
And there we went. Great alignment.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's one of those things where whether you believe in something or not, there's this whole aspect of just right place,
That's
right
right.
time and things like that. Yeah, for sure. So with Lonny's Smile, what's your role now besides founder? I mean, do you actively work in it?
Yeah, it is. It is active. It remains a grassroots foundation. So we have no paid employees. It is totally fueled by volunteers. And I'm active as the chair on the board of directors. And then we have a great, very small but mighty board of directors and volunteers, many of which have been with us since 2010 when we founded the organization. And I'm very grateful for them every single day.
Well, yeah, just the people who are willing to give their time, right, and give their skill and really even their emotion and everything to it. That's great. I did bring up the subject of grief, and some people might have heard that and just feel like I was kind of passive about it, which is not true. It's just that, this podcast isn't about that necessarily. So it's kind of like just one thing people might know too is, your relationship changes with it, so you can talk about it from a different point of view. But for me, David Sedaris, I think, is someone who really showed me like a different way to address it. And is there anyone who, I don't know, just you've kind of looked to or heard from that kind of resonated with you in the same way?
Yes. Most recently, it's Anderson Cooper. So I've always admired Anderson for so many things. And in part it's just his humility and authenticity. And, he went through the tragic loss of his brother when he was young, when his brother took his own life. And then most recently, well, of course, his dad before that, and then his brother, and most recently his his mother. And so Anderson started a podcast called All There Is. And he didn't actually intend to start a podcast. He was just cleaning out his mother's apartment in New York and was just sort of documenting that as he was going through things, and then decided, well, this may be something that other people would benefit from. So he just finished his first season and interviewed folks like Stephen Colbert as well, who has had a lot of loss in his life.
Yeah.
And it was incredible when I listened to the podcast for the first time, because suddenly, especially that Stephen Colbert episode, things became clear to me. So there's something very powerful about hearing from others who have had loss in their life, and suddenly things that they say can just make things click for you. So when Stephen Colbert talked about the loss of in his life, he talked about it being like when a cable was broken. And I'd never thought of that. And I remember saying out loud in the car, because that's where I listen to all podcasts, is, yes, that's it. Because when I think about my brother, I have lots of memories from the time that he passed away, interestingly enough, forward in terms of that time, but not before. And it is like a cable being broken. So I really admire Anderson Cooper for he's very emotional in that podcast. He's very honest. He's very open. And for those who have gone through grief, who are looking for sort of a community, I think it's a terrific resource.
Yeah. No, that it does sound like that. And to me, it's a way that he's kind of serving the memory of those other people. And you're doing it through the foundation. I do it through volunteering. Yes. And I think that one thing that just in general is important for people to do is to find a way to honor that. So you do a lot and you stay busy, it sounds like. But what kind of lets you be centered and grounded and not get overwhelmed by it? Like, there has to be an emotional aspect, even though it's for your brother and it's a nice thing. Lonny's Smile also has a lot of stress around it, probably, when you're doing fundraising and stuff. And then you have work that you're doing with the Salvation Army. And so what do you do outside of work that kind of gives you space?
Well, I'd say sometimes it's not easy. I'll be honest about that. I think that a lot of times we kind of look at Instagram lives and think, oh my gosh, how exciting is that? And it's the reality of it is that sometimes it's not easy, and it's not easy to stay grounded and balanced. So yoga and meditation are very important to me, but sometimes they fall off the rails when things get really busy. And I think it's important to be as self-aware as you can be about when things are out of balance. That to me has been the most important thing, is when things feel off the rails. So there's too much focus on my full-time role, and I'm not getting those opportunities to do yoga, meditation. I do meditations on Insight Timer too, and sometimes I go for a gap without being able to do those. I have blogs on my website. I'll tell you, I need to update that and get some more blogs done. But, I think it's just sometimes being very gracious with yourself and realizing that you can't do it all. And sometimes you have to make some choices. I wouldn't say sacrifices, but sometimes it's, things are really busy at work right now, and I got to have other things take a back seat. Or sometimes it's, I really need to take a mental break for myself and do yoga and meditation, because I know that if I take the time for those, that it will make everything better.
That's great. So how long have you been practicing yoga and meditation?
Well, this is one of those things, Rabia, where I just sort of, go straight into things. When I started taking my yoga teacher certification, I had not practiced yoga. Same with meditation. I had very little exposure, and I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to get certified and just, go full in. So both of those happen. So the career transition and entrepreneur coach certification, the yoga teacher certification, and the meditation mindfulness certification all took place during COVID. So once we started working from home full time, I just felt like I had a little bit of space and time to be able to do those, and did them all at once. And I just felt like they could combine into something that I could offer to be of service to others.
Huh. How has, I guess, learning that and then sharing things with others, has it changed your perspective on yourself at all? Like, and how you kind of understand your own path?
Interesting question. I think that, when you have a multi-path career, sometimes it's just about seeing the next dot. So you don't necessarily, and you don't need to see the full puzzle as you're heading into it. You just need to be able to see the first pieces. So I use that as an example is, just you start with box of puzzle pieces, and then you look for the sky. And then after you look for the sky, then you look for the green of the grass and the trees. So I guess what it's changed my perspective of is as I've sort of followed this multi-path career, it has made it easier for me to kind of see my what's next and what could be. And I don't even have to or do have it fully formed. I just see that there is something ahead of me that will transpire into my what's next.
How are you finding coaching other people? Is it something that's easy to do? Is it something that are you identifying things in other people that you saw in yourself before? How's that going?
So first thing, super fulfilling to be able to help in some ways for others to find their own path. One thing that's important, I think, to remember about coaching is that it's not about providing the answers. It's built on the basis that we all have everything inside of us that we need to be able to move forward. Sometimes it just takes asking the right questions to be able to bring it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most exciting part for me, Rabia, is just being able to ask questions and for the individuals that I'm coaching to be able to find their own answers in those questions and their own path forward.
Yeah, that's great. And I don't know, I like that you kind of, because even at work you have mentors and stuff, but it's nice to be able to seek them outside of work sometimes, especially when you might be needing mentorship about leaving work.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I've always felt that, mentors and coaches have been extremely important in my life and still are, because just having that other individual or individuals who are able to, see things in you that you may not see in yourself. So my mentor is Susan Donas. She's a very, very successful senior leader globally, and also an extremely humble and authentic individual. And having those people in your life and seeking those out, those relationships out, I think are so critical to success. None of us do anything on our own. Ultimately, we get help from others in a community around us.
Definitely, yeah. And it's sometimes hard. I know for me, it's been hard to accept help or that I need help. But once I've done that, I've had really rewarding relationships with people, and also I've been able to give more to others because I'm able to accept it and almost kind of, I don't know, it makes it more equal somehow in the universe, maybe, or something.
That's a very good point.
So one thing I like to ask every guest who's on More Than Work is just, and you've kind of covered it with some advice already, but is there any advice or mantra that you would just like to share with listeners?
From an advice standpoint, I'd say if you're looking to pursue something outside of work, the first and most important thing is to understand why. Why and why now are you looking to do something else, whatever that path might be, recognizing that you don't need to have it all figured out. So just start with one thing. Let's say you're looking to have a multi-path career. You don't need to know what all those paths are. Just sort of start with one and work on that, and look to take, and I know this is a phrase that's used by a lot of people, but look to take massive imperfect action every day. So even if you have 5 minutes, just make progress towards it. You don't need huge chunks of time. You don't need to be, a week off work to be able to make progress. Just take the time that you need. Find a community of people who can surround you, make you accountable, provide you with support, and above all, really be gracious with yourself. So sometimes it'll be tough. Your full-time job may take everything that you have to give, and you may not have a lot to give outside of that other than to yourself, but make sure that you do that and just, go for it. I have this small statue, which I know you won't see through audio, I'll show it to you, Rabia. And my dear friend Robin gave this to me many years ago. And it says, I'm a huge football fan. If you don't pick up the ball and run with it, somebody else will. And so it's really important just to move forward. And I think about, what I would have missed out on if I hadn't done that. I wouldn't have been able to honor the memory of my brother through Lonny's Smile. I wouldn't have been able to meet his nurse, Anne-Marie Stain. We wouldn't have been able to send 129 kids with congenital heart disease to summer camp, which literally changes their lives. I wouldn't have been able to attend an international film festival and see my name on the screen and the credits as an executive producer, to launch and grow a first-to-market prebiotic soda company, and so much more. So just start. Just make the first step. If that's volunteering in a thrift store or another community organization, if it's, starting to write, if you want to be a writer, but whatever that is for you, just take that first step.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you just sharing all that and walking through all that, because I think there's a lot there that, especially just on the getting started. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks.
So the last set of questions I have then, where we're near the end, is the fun 5. So these are just questions that I think are fun, and I want to know what your answers are.
Great.
So we'll start with the first one. What is the oldest t-shirt you have and still wear?
Well, I don't know that for sure, but I will say it has to be a Rolling Stones t-shirt. It has to be, because I have many Rolling Stones t-shirts. They are just my favorite. I once met Keith Richards, which I will never forget in all of my life, and I just will not give away any Rolling Stones t-shirts, so it has to be the Rolling Stones.
Great, yeah. I actually went and saw them at the Rose Bowl in Hollywood,
fantastic.
or in Los Angeles. Took my mom, and it was really cool just to do that and for her to see them. But they're great. And I always thought she was only a Beatles person. Like, I just had this idea, and then she's like, no, I used to listen to the Stones, and how dare I? So
That's great. They're amazing. The longevity is incredible. It was so sad to lose Charlie Watts, but my gosh, they are if I can be moving anywhere like Mick Jagger at his age, then that'll be a good day.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And speaking of music, really, so if every day was really Groundhog's Day, like it seemed back in the pandemic when I wrote this question, well, not that we're not out of the pandemic yet, but during the part where we're all locked down, it's a different part. What song would you have your alarm clock set to play every morning?
Oh, that is so easy. Billy Joel, New York State of Mind, because I literally play it every single morning. I love Billy Joel, and next month I am having the very privilege of going to see him at Madison Square Garden, and that has been on my bucket list forever. So that's an easy one. I can definitely listen to that every day.
Oh, that'll be a fun show. MSG's pretty cool.
Never been there, but I love New York City. My daughter is in theater production, and so I think we're going to see Billy Joel and 4 musicals on Broadway. So it's going to be fun.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah,
good for you.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. And coffee or tea or neither?
Coffee, definitely coffee, and it would be a chai latte with lots of cinnamon on top. And just like my dad, I can drink a coffee right before bed, and I can sleep like a baby.
Yeah, and with the chai, do you ever do like a dirty chai so you get this shot of espresso in it?
I have absolutely done that. I think I did that about a week ago.
Yeah, it's makes it a little more spicy and amps it up a little bit. So cool. Nice. Can you think of a time that you laughed so hard you cried, or just something that just cracks you up when you think of it that you can share on a podcast?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's always going to be something that the kids say. So I've got a 20-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son, and they both have, especially my daughter, has a very dry sense of humor. But yesterday, I actually laughed so hard. So my son, who is in college for video game art design, he was having a really tough time with an assignment. He had been working on it all day, all night. It was now noon. It was like 24 hours later. And he came in, and I was working, and I said, "How's it going?" And this is his exact quote: either my teacher is a stone cold liar or I misunderstood him, and either is possible. And I cracked up at that.
I like how he's at least willing to accept accountability, but also willing to not if he doesn't need to. So that's great. Yeah, and both could be true
That's
too.
right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. So the last one, who inspires you right now?
First has to be my friend Reg. I've known him almost since I've known anyone. And I'm actually going to visit him along with some other high school buddies in Vancouver next week. And Reg is battling leukemia. And when I think about Reg, I think about hope, positivity, resilience, courage, and he inspires me absolutely every day. The other person who inspires me is President Zelensky from the Ukraine. And he, to me, is a case study, an expert role model on inspired leadership. He is authentic, he's courageous, he is self-aware, he is compelling, and he is direct. So I think he's an amazing leader and one who didn't have a lot of leadership experience prior to leading something so incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's really amazing. Just everything. Because that's another one too, where it's almost like it's been going on for so long that it's not center of attention anymore. But for the people in Ukraine, they're constantly there.
Yeah,
so
wishing them well.
So if people want to find you, where should they go? How do you want them to look for you?
Thanks. So you can find me at tamaradoerksen.com. So that's TamaraDoerksen.com. And you can actually go onto the website and download my free workbook on 4 key questions to start down your next path. I'd also love if you checked out lonnysmile.org. That's LONNYSSMILE.org. And also you can find my meditations on the free Insight Timer app.
Yeah, and Tamara, that app is awesome, by the way. I love it because it tracks the days in a row you do things. So it's really
and it's
cool.
free.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Well, thanks so much for being on More Than Work. I really appreciate it and enjoyed our chat.
Thank you so much, Rabia. I have really enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you for all that you do and for providing this forum for people to share and hopefully, gain more of a community and be able to pursue things outside of work. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the guest and what was talked about in the show notes. Joe Maffia created the music you're listening to. You can find him on Spotify at Joe, Maffia. Rob Metke does all the design, for which I am so grateful. You can find him online by searching Rob, Metke. Please leave a review if you like the show, and get in touch if you have feedback or guest ideas. The pod is on all the social channels at More Than Work Pod or at Rabia Comedy on TikTok, and the website is morethanworkpod.com. While being kind to others, don't forget to be kind to yourself.